So you want to start homeschooling, but you have no idea where to begin. Look no further. I'm going to give you the complete how to get started homeschooling guide. There are 8 steps in this. We're going to walk through all 8 steps. They're very, very simple, and I have broken each one down for you on the blog. So let's say you are really good at steps 1, 2, 3, 4. You're already solid on those. Maybe you need 5 and 6, a little bit more work on those. I'm not going to waste this video going into depth on each of those. Instead, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what it takes to get started. And then I have it broken down even further with additional videos and resources for each section that you can go over and expound on anything that you feel like you need to brush up on a little bit more. If you're new here, welcome. If you have been consuming my content, welcome back. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm Tanya Johnson. I'm the founder of Helping Hearts Homeschool, where I help parents and grandparents put the joy back into their homeschool journey. Now, I also work very closely with homeschool parents who want to use social media as a way to pay for their homeschool. But that is something that we can talk about at a later time. Now, I want to start off and give you a little bit of my story on how I became a homeschooler, because a lot of y'all don't know, I was in the anti-homeschool community for a very, very long time. So once I share my story, I will go through those 8 steps in detail with you, and then you can decide what you want to kind of dive deeper into. Now, my homeschool journey started back when I was personally in middle school. So the summer before my 8th grade year, I was pulled out of public school and I was enrolled in a homeschool program called ACE. Now, if you're familiar with ACE, I am not bashing them. I'm not against the ACE curriculum. However, it is also very easy to cheat your way through that system. How do I know, you ask? Well, I had the student books and I had the teacher books, and I was left completely to my own devices. I homeschooled myself, quote unquote, homeschooled myself. And what I did was take the student books and I opened the teacher books and I copied answers from one to the other. And I did that for 2 years. That was the extent of my homeschool journey. Now, before you think that I'm the only one that did that, I had several friends in the youth group who were also homeschooled that did very much the same thing. That's where I got the idea from in the first place. I also had friends that were using video systems to homeschool. Same thing. They were on their own, kind of homeschooling themselves. They equally did not like homeschooling. Now, to give all the parents credit, most of the people that I knew as a kid that homeschooled, their parents did it as a way, like a means to an end. We were in a really small town. There was no Christian school. The public school system was pretty bad. So it wasn't done out of passion for homeschooling. It was done out of, crap, I don't want my kid to go to public school. I guess we're going to homeschool. So I have nothing ill to speak against those parents. I can say I actually have love for every single one of them in different areas of my life that they've helped with. But overall, none of those teenagers were thriving when it came to homeschooling. And I think majority of them would tell you today that they are not pro-homeschool, or at least not pro-homeschool the way that they were homeschooled. Now, fast forward to when I turned 16, my pastor's wife very much encouraged me to go ahead and just get my GED and go to college, kind of get out of Dodge, get a fresh start. I was making a string of very poor decisions at that time in my life. And so I did. I got my GED. I moved 1,000 miles away. I started college and I met a whole nother string of homeschool kids. Now, all of these kids, except a couple, I can think on one hand how many homeschool kids I knew that didn't have this issue. They all had a hard time adjusting to college life. And it was either one category or the other. Either they were incredibly smart, but they had very little social skills and next to no communication skills. So they had a really hard time making friends. They were very much loners. They were the kids that unfortunately were picked on. Listen, I know it's college. You don't think that happens anymore. They're still kids. Like at college, you're just older kids. There was a lot of bullying that I saw. On the flip side, there were kids who had no issues making friends. They were very social, but their educational gaps were huge. They flunked out of classes. They couldn't keep up with classes. Either way, they all had a hard time adjusting to college life. Some of them didn't adjust. They made it 1 or 2 semesters and then they just left and we never heard from them again. Now, me being the little child that loved to do the research even back then, I talked to a lot of these kids about their homeschool experience because I was going to go to school to be a teacher. That's what I was getting my degree in. And none of them had a positive homeschool experience. Every single one that I talked to said that they would have rather gone to school. They felt like they missed out on a lot of their childhood. So by the time I was 21 and I graduated, I was 100% anti-homeschool. No way was I going to do that to my kid. And of course, apparently God has a weird sense of humor, because guess who's currently doing that to their kid? Me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me, right? So my paradigm has shifted a lot over the years, but I think it's important to see why I was such a strong anti-homeschooler, because I did have such negative experiences, and then I ran into people who also had negative experiences with it. Now, before I dive into how we started the homeschool experience, I do want to just put this little side note in here. As someone who has seen the damage that can be caused by homeschooling, if you are not willing to put in 100% of your time and money and make those sacrifices to homeschool in a very healthy way, I would suggest not doing it. I know that's not popular for a homeschool creator to say. I am very pro homeschool, but I'm pro homeschool if it's done correctly. It's not an easy way out. It is not something that should be taken lightly. This is your child's literal childhood and education at this point. It is something that it's a lot easier to give them to someone else for 8 hours a day and let them educate them. Homeschooling is not the easy way out. It's not something that we do just willy-nilly. It is something that needs to be a very serious decision that you make as a family. Now, having said that, it can be a lot of fun and very rewarding for both you and your children when done in a fashion where it is given a priority in your home and it's treated as such. Now, how did we go from anti-homeschool to being a homeschool advocate? Back in 2017, my daughter was almost 4, and we decided we were ready to put her in preschool. Now, she wasn't chomping at the bit, like she wasn't a baby genius or anything, but she was also showing signs to where we didn't want to wait a whole nother year and not do anything. The problem is her birthday was just a few days after the cutoff date. So we couldn't put her in preschool that year. I knew I wanted her to do something. I was already working from home at that time, so I was already a stay-at-home mom, for lack of a better term. I told my husband, I was like, I'm just going to homeschool her for preschool. What's the worst that can happen? I either screw it up and she starts preschool next year. At least she didn't do a whole year of nothing. Or she does really well and we just go ahead and start her in kindergarten by taking the entrance exam. Not a big deal, right? Now, when I tell you, so many light bulbs came on during that year, and it was so rewarding watching her grow, I started thinking like, okay, maybe I want to give this homeschool thing a shot, but I want to make sure I don't repeat all the mistakes that everyone in my life has went through when it comes to homeschooling. Now, at the time, there was a lady in our church that was about my age. Her daughter was a year older than mine. She was 100% for homeschool. But she also had had a very positive experience in her homeschool world. I knew her in college. She was very well-rounded. She was social. She had friends. She academically was prepared for college. She did fine throughout her classes. Now, she had a couple gaps when it comes to communication. However, as adults, even that went through public school, we all have gaps in something. So she was kind of like the unicorn of the homeschool world, in my opinion. But she gave me a ton of resources. She wasn't judgmental when I was like, yeah, I don't like homeschooling. And she's actually the reason that I gave homeschooling a shot in the first place. Now, obviously, I'm glad that I did, because now my daughter's thriving through the homeschool world. But what started out as only homeschooling for a year turned into God kind of showing our family how much homeschool could offer us and how much freedom it would give my daughter when it comes to education. So now that you know my story, let's go ahead and dive into those 8 steps. And what I want you to do is make sure that you are getting everything from the corresponding blog as well. So it is linked down in the description area of this YouTube video. And I go through, like I said, each step in detail, plus there's a ton of free resources over there for you that's going to really help you through your homeschool journey as well. Number 1 is just know the laws. There are going to be specific laws for your state and for your country on how many hours you have to homeschool, what homeschooling is consistent of, like what counts as homeschooling, if that makes sense, what subjects you have to teach. It's just going to go through layer by layer on what all you have to do to be compliant in your homeschool journey. Now, what I have over there for you is there's a button you can click and it'll take you state by state. Just click on your state. It gives you all of the information for wherever you live. Number 2 is familiarize yourself with the national standards. Now, I know there's a lot of butting heads with this concept. However, it will help you give that foundation to your preschool through 5th or 6th grader, that when middle school and the higher teenage years come, it's going to be a lot easier than if they go into that already with huge educational gaps in the foundation of the education. So again, I have a list broken up for you that breaks it down from preschool. This is what they should know, kindergarten, 1st grade, all the way through 5th grade. Now, steps 3 through 5 kind of go together. You're going to learn your child's preferred learning language. You're going to learn your preferred teaching method. And then you're going to go through all the curriculum and decide which is best for your family. So step number 3, the learning language. This is something I'm super passionate about. It would be like you teaching your child in Spanish and expecting them to learn it in English. There are 4 different learning styles. There are 4 different ways your child could be receiving the information. Their brain is going to primarily focus on one of those. So I'm going to walk you through the 4 different learning styles, and I have a quiz that you can actually go through with your child to see which category they fit in best. And then number 4 is going to be your teaching method. So there's also a few different teaching methods. We're going to go through what they are and how to figure out which one resonates most with you, but then also which one lines up the best with your child's learning language. And then step 5, I have all the curriculums linked, all the popular curriculums. There's always little ones popping up here and there, but I have them linked, and then I tell you, okay, this curriculum goes with this teaching style and this learning style. So do you see how you're going to take the learning style and the teaching style, and you're going to pick the curriculum that fits best with it? And we have that for math, science, history, Spanish, music, all the way down. So that is something I get a lot of questions on. Why don't I have a blog post telling people what curriculum to buy? My answer is always the same. It doesn't matter if I love it if it doesn't work for your family. What works for me may be something that doesn't work for you. So instead of telling you what curriculum to go buy, I'm giving you the tools to discover which curriculum fits best with your family, and then I give you the link to go buy that. Now, number 6 is picking your homeschool schedule. This is something that I walk you through how to break it down yearly, monthly, weekly, and daily. So you can discover that on the blog. And I have a whole freebie pack for that with calendars and master sheets and attendance cards, and just really makes it easy for you to keep on top of your homeschool, keep it organized, and keep it like a well-oiled machine. Number 7 is creating your homeschool mission statement. Now, as I said in the beginning, homeschooling is not the easy way out. You're going to come to tough days. You're going to question why you chose it in the first place, because it is going to get hard. Having a homeschool mission statement just gives you something to fall back on and really remember why you started the journey in the first place. And then number 8 is not really a step. It's just a reminder to have fun. Make sure that you're focusing on helping your child fall in love with learning. If they fall in love with learning and you make it enjoyable in these years, and you teach them that there's more than just learning inside the 4 walls of the classroom, then you're creating lifelong learners versus kids that graduate high school or even graduate college and think, okay, I'm done. I don't have to learn anything ever again. You want them to associate learning with enjoyment, not with the idea of like, oh man, I have to do this. I've got to learn something new again. So explore it. Let your kids explore their hobbies and their interests. Let them have a leisure lifestyle of learning versus running the rat race that everyone else is doing in the world. So go ahead and check out the blog, print off the homeschool starter guide. It's a free checklist I have for you guys. Walks you through those 8 steps in a way that you can check it off when you feel like you are done with that specific step. Also make sure and check out the other video that I've done on the common homeschool objections. These could be objections you have. It could be objections your friends and family have, but it basically goes through things like isolation, having authority outside of parents, peer-to-peer relationships, socialization, education gaps, all the things that you hear of like, oh, this is why you shouldn't homeschool. I go through those. They're very real fears, by the way, and they happen a lot in the homeschool world, unfortunately. But there are ways that you can prevent those from happening in your home, and I kind of talk you through that a little bit. So again, Tanya Johnson from Helping Hearts Homeschool. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. Until next week, see y'all later.